Senator Ronan Mullen.
Well, with goodwill to all, I say that, and I say it on behalf of hundreds of thousands of people in our country, this is a sad moment. This is certainly a moment of great change, but not, I believe, of permanent negative change. But it is certainly a crisis for solidarity in Ireland with some of the most vulnerable among us. And I say that on behalf of hundreds of thousands of people who are very sorry that this day has come. It could be said that Ireland hasn't so much caught up with the rest of the world, but lost its lead, and that the rest of the world has caught up with us in terms of this very sad and despairing way of dealing with a human dilemma. And as we consider how we might have got here, it's useful to reflect on how past wrongs sometimes lead to counter-reactions and injustices. I think of past injustices of men towards women. I think of the despair of the events of the 20th century internationally. I think of the emergence of Marxism and its focus on the resolution of injustice through conflict between people. I think it's fair to say that a movement has grown up that has drawn a wedge between women and men and between women and children, and chosen to see a conflict of rights instead of a reconciliation of rights in response to many human problems. But I do want to pay tribute to the visionary people of 1983, who did establish a constitutional principle that cherished all human life. And while it is true that many travelled abroad for abortions, it has always been wrong to say that this was only a matter of whether people had abortion abroad or had abortion at home. We've not had sufficient emphasis and realisation of just how many lives were saved because of the Eighth Amendment, just how many women avoided abortion regret, just how many children grew up to be adults to survive and thrive within our society. There is no easy way of dealing with this dilemma, but it is always better to take the route that does no harm and does as much good as possible. One could dwell on politicians and promises given by political parties and promises not kept and people misled and people deceived. One could also reflect on the corruption of medicine at home and abroad, and on the coercion of people's consciences, all issues that flow from unjust law. We do have a problem. In the name of compassion, innocent lives can be taken away. A matter of concern to anybody who sees themselves as an inclusive humanitarian. In our topsy-turvy world, this silencing of the invisible, vulnerable voice is called compassion. It's even called human rights. But sadly, it is a travesty of respect for human rights and human dignity. But there is hope. Advances in science more and more help us to a realisation of the wonder of life in the womb from its earliest stages. And once more we will see stirrings of idealism, and a new generation will emerge, and is already emerging, that will demand a return to solidarity. Nothing is forever, and while much focus was given to the cheering and after the result of the referendum, something that many people, including yes voters, found disturbing, less attention has been paid to the many young people, not a majority, but numerically significant, who see this in human rights terms. Some of them people of faith, some of them not, because they see it as something that should be of concern to all faiths and none, including the weakest among us. We are at our best as a society when we make room for the weak and the invisible and the powerless. And that is never about saying no to supporting women in their dilemma. It is a both-and solution instead of an either-or solution that has always been at the heart of the pro-life message. And where we will arrive at a moment where there will be more education and cultural change in favour of a more inclusive vision of human rights. The Minister may talk about erecting barriers to those who would protest, Well, I would certainly not ever want to engage in any activity that would stop people from accessing what is a legal entitlement. But the Minister or nobody can ever silence the voices of those who will want, in a loving and respectful way, to offer and to persuade in a better direction, in a way that cherishes all human life. And these people that I've spoken about, who I've met, who are texting me today, men and women, younger and older, people in college and people in the working world already. These are the people who will respond in ever more active, ever more kind, ever more vigilant ways to try and create a better future. Today is not the end of the pro-life movement. Today is the beginning of a new phase in its work. And there are encouraging signs in other parts of the world. Angela Merkel's successor, for example, is pro-life and taking things in a better direction, or would wish to take things in a better direction in Germany, even when the majority is strongly against. The thing about the pro-life message is because it is rooted in something that is good and beautiful, and it always has new ambassadors. Each new generation comes forward. And it will be my hope, and it is something that I see in these young people, that they're not out to divide. They are out to bring people together in search for solutions that are inclusive, that are respectful of women, respectful of men, respectful of people born and unborn. There will be civil rights activism in the name of that very important civil right that is conscientious objection. The right to go your way peacefully, to do no harm to others, and not to be caught up in processes that are unjust and that do harm to others. So we have reached the end of this phase. We have lost something noble and good and productive. And I'm sad to say that in the short term, we will see the negative fruits of the repeal of the 8th Amendment and the legislation that has followed. But I already see the early light of the bright new dawn that is ahead.